Let's talk about the American strike. Correct me if I'm wrong. It was my understanding that the Israelis did take out air defenses to open a corridor for American bombers, but maybe that's incorrect. And secondly, let's talk about 408 kilograms of enriched uranium. I think they're supposedly at 60%. But let's talk about the American strike.
Well, the Americans warned these Iranians beforehand. Either, I think, probably through the Swiss embassy in Tehran or through, equally likely, through Oman, warned them in advance and also told them it was once and done, i.e. it would be one strike, finish, end of the process. So they passed that information to the Iranians. And I believe, I can't vouch for it perfectly, but my understanding is that the Russians said to them, look, just let it happen. It's much better, just let it happen. You probably won't, it won't be as damaging as it may be advertised. Just let it happen. And it's true, because on that time, it's fairly clear. There was no evidence you can see of any great, if you like, air defenses being used or mounted or explosions. Iranians tell me, I was in Iran just before this happened. The Iranians tell me it was very quiet that night. There was nothing happening. So they just came in, they did what they wanted to do, and then they left. What success they had? Well, nobody can really say. I mean, at this stage, anyone who tells you or says they know, I don't think is telling the truth, because the only way you know, there are about 5 entrances to Fordow, 5 different entrances. 2 of them were blocked up with soil by the Iranians before the strike, 2 days before. And the whole basis of this depends on a very controversial piece of, if you like, mechanics. Most of those entrances to the Fordow base have got blast bends in them. In other words, if there's an explosion, it can't go any further. It can't reach the centrifuge hall. Centrifuge hall, don't forget, is at 800 meters depth in this mountain. And then there is an event. And this is a source of controversy in America as anywhere else, is according to the Americans and who briefed Trump, the vent had no, if you like, bend in it. It was vertical, straight from the surface down to the centrifuge hall. And many experts, professors from MIT and others, are very adamant in saying it's unbelievable that the Iranians would have put blast bends in all of the entrances, but have forget to do it in the vent. Well, I don't know the answer to that. You'll have to go and ask the professor about that. But yes, 4 days beforehand, there were trucks at Fordow, and the Iranians, and there's some reasonably reliable reporting that the highly enriched uranium was removed and probably deposited in this other site called Pickaxe Mountain, which is also quite close to Qom. And I would think it's probably hidden there somewhere. It's even deeper than Fordow, by the way. But it's never mentioned because it seems to be off the radar. Anyway, I think that is probably where it is. But until the Iranians clear one of these entrances, I mean, which they deliberately blocked up to sort of stop pressure rising, and go into the hall, we won't know how much damage is done. But I think the Isfahan one also is very deep, and it's quite likely that centrifuges were not destroyed at Isfahan. Nantas is different. Nantas is very old. It's there from the Shah's time. It's mostly on the surface. I remember passing it, and you could, it's there and you see it. But they put the centrifuges down, I think, between 60 and 80 meters. So, I mean, maybe they're badly damaged. Who knows? but they don't need many centrifuges. One of the things that this professor from MIT, Postel says that, once you get to a certain point in the enrichment process, then it becomes exponential. You just have to do a tiny bit more and that you're up at 90%. So, I mean, they don't need many centrifuges to have survived.
The pilots talked about seeing explosions, but what I heard, that was in fact not a good sign.
Yes, that's right. That is a sign that there was a blast spend on the vent, and so the blast was coming up, and that's why it had a spectacular view of explosion, because it hadn't gone down to the centrifuge floor. It had come up and was at the surface. So it isn't necessarily a good indicator of that. So that was really the gist of it. That I think it was clear, that Trump wanted it, and we know quite a lot about that day because someone, and I wrote about it since you, and I'm sure you probably know Michael Wolff, who's written 4 books on Trump, and he was talking and calling. He works by calling interlocutors that Trump has just spoken to on the phone. And he says it's a really reliable way of finding out what Trump is thinking, because he says the same question to each interlocutor. And it's not really a question. So on the 12th, it seemed that on the 22nd, rather, the day of the American strike, Trump was quite anxious, according to Michael Wolff. And he kept asking people, is it going to work? Is it going to be a win? Is it going to be, a game changer? I'm hoping for a game changer. We want something that is perfect. And this will be, a big headline and a big win. And I want the headline, we won. And so he says there was, an element of sort of lack of confidence almost in Trump. He went on saying the same thing. This is what it's got to be. In, boom, out. In, boom, out, ceasefire. And so that's how it was presented. And actually, this suits the Iranians quite well, because he says, and insists, obliterated. Everything has been obliterated. There's nothing left. It's all over. No nuclear program. Well, this is fine from the Iranian point of view, because they say, well, then, to sort of Macron and others who are saying, well, the IAEA have to go back and sort of inspect and find out what's going on. And they say, but it's you who say it's all over. There isn't a program, so why do we need the IAEA in there at all? In fact, the IAEA are already out, and their return, I'm not exaggerating this, they need huge bodyguards if they ever went back to Iran. They are hated with a huge intensity by the ordinary population, because they believe that particularly the assassination of the scientists and the identification of them came from the IAEA artificial intelligence program Mosaic, which is one of the, if you like, Palantir stable of targeting systems, which relies on imputing motives to people, not on evidence. This is where you get the great disparity with Tulsi Gabbard, for example, because what the IAEA were using was this data gathering process, examining 400 million pieces of data, social, what you read on your social platforms, where you move, who your children play with, all of those things, just like Palantir uses the same system in Israel and in Gaza, to impute to Israel, to Iran, the idea that they are not being honest in moving the enriched uranium, that they're not declaring things. And so that's what happened on the 12th, the day before the Israeli attack on Iran. The board of the IAEA, on the basis of this evidence, said, oh, Iran is accelerating towards enrichment and therefore to a bomb, and it's in breach of of the protocols of the JCPOA. This is really the pretext for the attack on Iran that took place on Friday, the 13th of June. That resolution that was prepared and stage managed effectively by the IAEA to give, if you like, a peg for the Israeli attack to take place, and which is why the Iranians and the Russians too are so distrustful of the IAEA. And I don't think it's going back into Iran.
Well, the UN inspection teams in Iraq were riddled with foreign intelligence operatives, including Israeli. One has to assume that's also true with the IAEA.
Oh, it's completely, I mean, it's not, I mean, it's verified. I mean, we know that they were providing intelligence to Mossad and to Israel about, and of course, IAEA insisted on meeting the scientists involved in the nuclear program and therefore being able to identify them. Whether this was directly passed on, I can't say. But the Iranians have intelligence which suggests that it was passed on. I haven't seen the intelligence.